Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Nigeria's government investigates a cuckoo in the nest in an awkward scandal. A fictitious agency wielding forged appointment letters from the president manages to set up amongst legitimate state offices under authorities' noses and even get itself earmarked for almost $1 billion in public money. The government says it's investigating, but that some damage has already been done. Also, in Nigeria, 36 states are looking at ratifying a major police reform that would allow them to set up their own forces. It comes as the country continues to struggle with how best to restructure its security apparatus amidst an ongoing and complex national security crisis. And it's been centuries since the Amraguan people of Mauritania have relied on nature, wind, fishing, and their traditional boats as a means to live and sustain their communities. But climate change, pollution, and a loss of ancestral knowledge is threatening that. We take a closer look. But first, in Nigeria, a made-up government agency that Abuja says was cooked up by a conman somehow managed to operate right under authorities' noses, set up offices on government premises, and somehow even get itself listed on the budget for the allocation of public money. The so-called Presidential Intervention Promotion Council was supposed to attract foreign investment to Nigeria, but instead it's drawn criticism of how President Bola Tinubu's administration runs its own house. Our Sam Olukoya tells us more.
By any standard, this is an unusual case that baffles the nation. The government says the Presidential Foreign Intervention Promotion Council is a fictitious agency established by a con artist with a history of fraudulent misrepresentation. But Adeniyi Adeyemi Matthew, the man at the center of the controversy, says the agency was established by the government. There are indications that the agency enjoyed some level of government recognition in the past. The agency got an allocation of more than 800,000 euros in this year's budget. The agency operated from the federal government secretariat. Matthew interacted with senior government officials and met foreign diplomats in his capacity as head of the agency. The agency even opened an account with the central bank. He insists this will not have been possible if the government did not officially set up the agency. Matthew alleges that things fell apart with government officials when it failed to fulfill their demand for kickbacks from the agency's budgetary allocation. President Bola Tinubu has asked the Independent Corruption Practices and Other Related Offences Commission to investigate the matter. Nigerians are hoping that more facts will emerge when the investigation gets underway.
Now, staying in Nigeria, its 36 states are soon to ratify a huge police shake-up that would allow them to set up their own police forces. Now, Nigeria has been struggling to restructure its security forces for decades now, and adding local police to the existing national squads is a bid to widen the available response net in a nation facing a complex security challenge. Part of the problem is a loss in faith in the police from both the public and often from officers themselves, as Chinwe Faith tells us.
These Nigerian police cadets are training for combat using rifles loaded with blanks.
You are in a danger zone.
Sunday Awudu runs a mobile police training center. Each session lasts a month without a break, with a program combining law enforcement tactics and physical training.
By doing all these things, this is what they should expect. They should expect more. Whatever we do here is a reflection of what happens outside there in the real situation, what Nigerians are going through.
The surge in insecurity in Nigeria has made police reform a matter of urgency. In Abuja, this new brigade is tasked with counter-terrorism and the prevention of kidnappings. Officers already in post are being trained and then redeployed to these vital missions. 15,000 new officers are also due to be recruited. The changes are made at overhauling the reputation and capacity of the existing force, which is largely accused of indiscipline and frequent corruption.
An accountable police force a responsible police force that respects human rights, a responsive police force that attends to the needs of the community, not doing what they feel.
Mourners here are still in shock over how police killed a young man back in April. His mother, Stella Ogidi, says she saw a phone recording of his death, which appeared to show how an officer killed her son at point blank range.
Now that place I don't understand so.
I honestly don't know. We are always told that the police are our friends, but I do not understand why this happened.
Understand where it could be like this.
The Nigerian government has a long way to go to regain the public's trust in policing. That can only happen if the transformation of the force succeeds in properly training and re-engaging the thousands of officers who say they aren't paid enough for the dangerous job and are believed to have lost motivation to properly uphold standards and justice.
Well, more than 300 people have been killed in intercommunal violence in Chad over the past 2 years. Researchers say that at least 5 separate incidents were recorded just last month. Our Harold Gerard tells us more.
Intercommunal violence is not new in Chad, but researchers say it has never shaken the country on this scale. Last month alone, authorities identified 5 separate such clashes in which people died. It's a worrying trend. As natural resources become increasingly scarce, competition over land and water is intensifying. Researchers say these conflicts have become so frequent that rival communities are becoming better armed and more organized. That leads to a larger scale and deadlier violence.
Intercommunal conflicts are becoming systemic. One of the most striking developments is the way communities are now mobilizing. We are witnessing a dynamic that increasingly resembles the formation of militias. Professional communities, such as farmers and herders, as well as ethnic groups, are geographically dispersed, yet they can mobilize extremely quickly and organize themselves into militia-like structures.
At least 400 people are believed to have been killed in intercommunal violence across Chad over the past 2 years. The government says it plans to tighten up control of the circulation of firearms among civilians and their communities.
Harold Girard there for us. Quick look at some news in brief. The Kenyan coastal city of Lamu will be the site of a huge East African oil refinery due to be built by the continent's richest man. Aliko Dangote wants to mirror the complex that he's already created in Nigeria, where he's from. Now, it's currently the largest in Africa. The Kenyan mega project's forecast to process more than 700,000 barrels a day. There are still questions about where it will source the oil needed to refine. The government in Nigeria has said that climate change is ratcheting up the intensity of storms and rain in the country. Lekki and Ikoyi in Lagos State have seen intense rainy season flooding recently. Major homes, roads and businesses have been inundated. Poor infrastructure and drainage do worsen the impact, but flood-prone communities say that they see the downpours getting worse every year. The South African rand fell to its lowest level in a week on Wednesday after US President Donald Trump said that an interim peace deal with Iran was over. By the afternoon, the rand traded at 16.385 against the dollar, down roughly 0.5% from its previous close. Analysts expect developments in the Middle East to keep dragging on the currency. And Zimbabwe says it's repatriated nearly 21,300 of its people from South Africa in just over 5 weeks as pressure mounted there on undocumented migrants to leave. The government also says that in that time, more than 56,800 others made their own way across the border between South Africa and Zimbabwe. Migrants from across Africa, including Ghana, Malawi, Mozambique, Nigeria, Uganda, and Zimbabwe, have been leaving South Africa through government-assisted programs for weeks now amidst mounting xenophobic threats, protests, and violence. Well, finally, for centuries, the Imraguan people of Mauritania have relied on wind, boats, fishing to live and sustain their communities. But climate change and the gradual loss of ancestral knowledge are threatening the livelihoods and their unique cultural heritage. Our Clarice Fortuné breaks it down for us.
These are the waters where the Sahara meets the Atlantic and where the Imraguen can be found here at the Bondarguin National Park. For generations, the small community has fished these protected waters using techniques passed down through the centuries.
All generations of the Imraguen have known how to fish and catch fish. They would carefully guide the fish towards their nets, pushing them gently and precisely. Today that no longer exists. Anyone can take a boat, even if they're not a captain, set up 15 nets, and go out to sea.
In the nearby village of Tinalul, Mohammed Jedidou remembers when every fishing tool was made by hand.
Long ago, before the appearance of nets and fishing tools, they made their own nets and fishing rods from a tree called titareg. They would carve it, and from its trunk and leaves, they made ropes for the nets.
The fish are becoming scarcer as warming seas and overfishing put growing pressure on marine life. Since 2000, the Imraguen have held exclusive rights to fish inside the Bondarguin. The arrangement keeps industrial fleets out of the park, and for the Imraguen, the park rules shape every season's work, where they can fish, how much they can take, and when they can take it. As the sails return to shore, the Imraguen continue to protect a way of life shaped by the sea. But preserving that heritage may depend on whether the fish and their traditions can survive for future generations.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us, though, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.